Ciro Rockshadow was the youngest member of his family and heir to the family fortune and estate. Of course, the whole noble family and farmlands he was to inherit were merely a front for the business his family was really in. The Rockshadow family was actually a family of vampires, and because most of them are born half vampires, around the time they turn 18, they're fully converted over to be full-blooded vampires. After that, the heir is in charge of the farms until they produce a new heir and they come of age. During this time at night, the heirs are taught how to hunt and gather their own food, how to control the thralls to do as they command, and finally the do's and don'ts of being a vampire. It's been about 2 years since Ciro was turned into a full vampire, and his mentor, Heathcliff, had decided he was finally ready to take the test to become a master vampire. His goal was to sneak into another lord's land, break into a house, drink the blood of a maiden, and make her his thrall. He was so excited to complete the test he transformed into his bat form and flew out of the cave without even getting a fill of blood from one of their blood thralls. It took him a few minutes, but he finally made it to a large lot of land owned by the Havenport family. Ciro flew over to where the servants all lived and looked through the windows until he found the prettiest woman there. He uses his powers to turn into a dark mist, phases through the window and then reappears. After that he leans over and extends his fangs and prepares to bury them into the woman's neck. Before he can though, he senses something and moves out of the way. The second afterward, an arrow comes flying through the window. The window shattered and the arrow pierced the wall above the woman. Ciro turned around and outside was a knight with a cross on his uniform and a small crossbow, also known by the vampires as the Holy Hunters. Their crossbow bolts were created with holy water-pressed silver and were fatal to any monster that was hit by one. There weren't many holy hunters around, yet somehow Ciro had managed to run into one. He knew he couldn't beat this guy, so he had to get away. Ciro turned into a bat and tried to fly past the holy hunter and away from there, but the hunter managed to grab one of his wings. Ciro was panicking and had to do something before this guy put an arrow into his heart, so he quickly transformed back into his normal form. Hunters are well prepared to deal with monsters, so most of Ciro's powers like hypnosis and mind reading wouldn't work, but there was one he could use. Super strength and speed. So while the hunter held on to him, he ran as fast as he could, jumped into the air and spun around. The hunter couldn't hold on and fell to the ground while Ciro returned to his bat form and left the area. Thanks to his mentor, he knew the holy hunters would still be able to track him until the morning sun came out, so he couldn't return home. So instead he makes his way to a different town and hides in an abandoned building until morning. Once the sun came up, Ciro put up his hood and began to make his way out of the town. That's when he noticed the sun was extra bright and quite draining on his body, which made him hungry. That's when he realized he hadn't had any blood since he left, and with that encounter with the holy hunter he was drained and needed to feast, or else he wouldn't have the strength to make it all the way home. It was still early, so many people wouldn't be out. Perhaps he could hypnotize someone and take them into a secluded area to feast, and if he was lucky, it would be a woman he could take back home to complete the vampire mastery test. Unfortunately, the only people awake and outside at this time were the elderly and the younglings, so that was all Ciro had to choose between for his fill of blood. He'd had blood from the elderly before, and it was always so gross and made him want to choke. For some reason, though, he'd never had fresh young blood. He couldn't remember why. He knew there was a reason, but he couldn't remember what it was. Perhaps something about taking blood from younger folk could kill them early or something. So maybe it was so the vampires never ran out of people to steal blood from, but he wasn't sure. All he knew was he needed to drink blood now. So when a girl wandered off alone, he took his chance to put her under his charm and bring her to the woods. He was just going to take enough blood to get home and leave her with enough blood that she just felt a bit woozy and returned home to sleep it off. Once he began to suck her blood, he realized something. It was the sweetest blood ever. Once he had enough of it, he used his power to send the girl back home and was about to transform back into his bat form, but suddenly his whole body was in pain. He fell to the ground and started to roll around. It was so much worse than touching silver or being around garlic. It was honestly like he was dying, but the dying part just wouldn't come. The whole time this was going on, his body felt like it was changing shape, almost like it did when he turned into a bat. It took several minutes of Ciro rolling around in pain on the ground before it stopped and she was able to stand up again. She was still catching her breath when she noticed her clothes didn't fit anymore. Her pants had fallen to the ground and her shirt was down to her knees. She had no idea why, but it was too dangerous to stay here, so she turned into a bat and flew to her family mansion and through the secret window that was left open for vampires in their bat forms to get through. After that, Ciro made her way to her bedroom. When she looked at her bed, she knew something was very wrong. Normally she looked right over it and now the bed frame was at her eye level, and everything in her room was super big. Something had happened to her body and she needed to know what, so she went to her dressing room and looked in the mirror. She immediately noticed the changes in her body. The biggest being that she was now a short, thin girl. Not just any girl, though, she looked exactly the same as the girl she had drunk blood from. The only difference between them was her hair was white, her skin was super pale, and her eyes were a deep red. Other than that, she had the girl's small frame, long flowing hair, soft and sweet voice, and her lack of manhood. Ciro was bright red with embarrassment at the state of her body and ran to the vampire caves to find her mentor. The rest of her family was confused about the vampire girl that none of them knew running around in just a shirt that was too big for her. When she finally made it to her mentor, who gave one look at her and sighed. The first thing he told Ciro was she failed her vampire mastery exam, and that maybe it was for the best since she clearly hadn't been paying attention. Ciro put her head down in defeat and agreed, then asked how she could turn back to normal. Heathcliff laughed at her and called her a dumb, foolish child, then explained that there was no way to turn back, she was stuck like this. Ciro asked what he meant. Heathcliff then explained why they don't suck blood from the youth. Well, specifically, they don't drink blood from those that are still unsullied, which most young people tend to be. If a vampire does, the pure blood is overwhelming for unholy creatures like them and causes a severe reaction. In most cases it's death, and in some very rare cases, the vampire will morph to take on the form of the person who had unsullied blood. That was when Heathcliff slapped the top of her head, calling her stupid for drinking that blood, then finishing by saying he hoped she liked that body, as it'll be hers for the rest of her life since she can't grow older in it. In the days to come, the Rock Shadow family made fake news about Ciro dying to bandits and then appointed his little sister, Ciri, as the new heir of the family. Because she was a girl, everyone expected her to act like one. So now Ciri spent her days in dresses prancing around with nobles and knights starting her vampire training over since her new body was completely different. Of course, neither of her jobs was all that easy now, as everyone treated her like a girl who didn't know any better. To be fair, she really did mess up, she completely cut off the family line with her blunder. Had she turned into an older woman, she'd still be able to continue it, but since her new body wasn't capable of that, the elders in her family were coming up with an alternate plan.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Also check out my Patreon and DeviantArt pages. There you can find all my public stories. You can also support my work by getting early access to all stories, exclusive content, and even commission me to make you a custom story. Anyways, thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great day.